On Saturday, December the 4th, Lyndon Arthur and Arthur-Yarde will go head-to-head in their highly anticipated rematch, after it was Arthur who won their first contest by a narrow points split decision. Joining me this week is the former two-weight world champion and now BT Sport boxing pundit Carl Frampton, and alongside Carl, the exciting world title challenger at light heavyweight, Callum Johnson. Well, welcome, gents. What a great fight we have in store, Carl.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The first fight was close, obviously, that Lyndon Arthur won. Close fight, but he deserved the decision. We know the issues with his right hand at the time. We know that Arthur-Yarde started late. I think we're going to see a completely different fight this time, a much more exciting fight, and I'm really looking forward to it. And
Callum, it's a fight that had to happen again. How did you have the first one?
Yeah, same. I had Lyndon winning the first one. Again, very close, but he controlled the fight, his pace with the jab, and as Carl said there, he did it with one hand. So this fight is going to have two hands. So Yarde's he's up against it, but he did start late. He got out the traps very slowly, so he's going to have to start quicker this time, and I'm sure he will do. And Yarde had his personal problems outside the ring. He had his hand injury, so there's no excuses this time from either as well. So it's an exciting fight and one I'm very looking forward to.
So let's start off with the last fight. Carl, what went right for Lyndon Arthur in this fight?
Yeah, I think controlling the pace, really. His jab, dictating it from the start, and kind of, you talk about Yarde starting late, but Arthur didn't allow him to kind of get into any sort of groove or flow. He's always dead reactive and he's always fidgety and never stands still, really. But I think just controlling the pace is what really won him that fight.
So, Carl, Lyndon Arthur was successful with his jab, but he didn't throw many right hands, did he?
Yeah, we listened to some of the advice in the corner here from Pat Barrett. Lyndon is saying to Pat, I can't land my right hand. So when you're listening into that, you're thinking, does that mean he can't land it because he's out of range?
Yeah, exactly.
Or is his hand sore? It's since turned out that he's got a problem with his hand, but that was the advice, obviously. And so, he's a one-handed fighter, beating, you can call Arthur-Yarde a world-class opponent. I think, but his jab was key in this fight for him.
And Cal, this jab, it's thrown from the hip, it's a lightning shot. He did really well with that shot.
Yeah, it's a great jab that he's got, and as you say, coming from the hip, it's harder for the opponent to see it as well, so you don't see where it's coming from. And they say he's twitching, he's fainting all the time, so you don't know when he's going to throw it. But I was saying about the right hand, I think if he does start throwing the right hand more in the rematch, he will leave himself possibly open for more counters from Antony as well. So it's interesting, if he brings his right hand to play more, will he be able to capitalise on the counters?
I think we see that jab a bit here, Richie, if you just look at it and where he throws it from. Like Callum talked about it coming from kind of hip height, and it's out of his line of vision.
Yes.
And people talk about keeping your hands up, you get hit too easy, but that's coming from there. Look at the low that's coming from. He cannot see it. I'm going to wind it back here a little bit. If you look at his line of sight, there it is there.
Yeah.
Watch where this jab comes from. Out of the line of sight.
Point. Yeah.
And
great point.
He can't see it. It's a great job.
And that's part of the trap, Cal, isn't it? With the hands so low, you can see the target, so you're coming forward, and all of a sudden, then he whips that shot.
Comes up from out of nowhere. And I do it myself sometimes in sparring and things like that, and I've been against opponents that do it, and it does make it like, if the jab comes straight from there in your line of sight, it's easy to see it, and it's textbook jab. So we're used to that from being a young age. Whipping up from the hip, as you say, it makes it a lot harder to read it.
And also, Carl, with the jab, it controls the pace of the contest as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think that was key in this last fight. The pace was controlled by Lyndon Arthur. We talked about Arthur-Yarde maybe starting a little bit late, but was it his? Whose idea was it there to start late? Did he start late, or did he not allow him to start at all?
Right.
He started in the 12th round when we'll have to try and do something here. It's a very close fight. I have to win this last round, but I think they obviously started way too late.
But he had success, didn't he? The pressure that he put on eventually, the second one.
Yeah, we'll see the pressure here from Arthur-Yarde. So he landed a decent body shot at some point, and it kind of started the onslaught for this round.
Yes.
But he was just walking forward here. Lyndon Arthur a little bit less composed than he had been on the back foot, looking a little bit ragged here and a little bit tired. But
yeah. But he's done all his work, hasn't he, Lyndon? He's just trying to get to the end of the contest now, Callum. But he catches him here with a good shot.
He does. He catches him. He wobbled him a bit in the last round there.
One there.
And he got through the last round, but it was too little too late
There's
for
that body
Antony-Yarde.
shot.
yeah.
And like Carl said, he started late, but was that down to Lyndon Arthur not allowing him to get into his rhythm,
Controlling
get
things,
into doing what he likes to do? And I think you've got to give Lyndon Arthur the credit for not allowing him to start.
Yeah, this is the
That's
Antony-Yarde.
the right
That's the right hand, isn't
Yeah.
it? That really sets the ball rolling in the last round. And the pace then, there's an injection of pace from Yarde. He's trying to finish it off. But we should have seen this surely a lot earlier in the contest.
Yeah, I
Carl.
think so. And it's got to be, again, we talk about the advice getting from the corner. If Pat Barrett is coaching Antony-Yarde, he's telling him, you need to push on, you need to win this fight. It was almost like they thought they were in control and they thought the fight was going their way, which isn't what the judges seen. It wasn't what I was watching as well.
It was too close, wasn't it, to say that, that one man is way ahead.
There was no real rounds where someone won that by, apart from the 12th round, which was the last round.
Yeah.
That was the only big, clear round for any fighter. But in my opinion, I thought that Lyndon Arthur was doing enough just to nick them. But the pressure here he's applying, it's what he's got to do, but he's got to do it. He's got to be clever when he's doing it, but he needs to do it earlier.
Callum, why is it then, or why was it in this contest that he started so late?
I think maybe
He hadn't gone 12 rounds before, though, remember?
No, yeah, he's
done
probably worried about that a little bit as well. He gassed out a little bit against Kovalev in his previous fight, so he's probably worried about that. But I think early on in the fight, he was trying to outbox Lyndon with the jab and single shots and things like that. And I think he's got to double up his shots, triple up his shots, 4 shots, 5 shots, because we've seen in some of Lyndon's fights in the past, he can be took out of his comfort zones and out of his rhythm. And if you take him out of his rhythm, he can look uncomfortable. We saw when he won the Commonwealth title, that was an uncomfortable fight for him. And, that opponent was nowhere near as good as Antony-Yarde. So I think Yarde's got to start faster, throw more punches, and just try and get him out of his rhythm.
There's always that chance of him blowing up, and like he done against Kovalev in the 8th round, where he couldn't recover after that. But look here, we're talking about his pressure. He applied a bit of pressure. He puts Lyndon Arthur onto the ropes where he wants him. He throws a couple of shots, but here he's not throwing enough. He's not doing enough there. No. He needs to be letting the hands go. He needs to be pushing him off. He needs to be bullying him. And I suppose there's definitely questions that need answered about his gas tank, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you remember against Kovalev, obviously it was the 8th round, he put everything into the 8th round, he tires and then gets stopped in the 11th. So psychologically, he might have been thinking, I still haven't gone the 12 rounds. We've all been there where we haven't that 12 rounds for the first time. There is that mindset where you just hold him back a little bit. And then when you get to the 11th or 12th round, you think...
Just go for it.
You think, I've got loads of energy.
We do it in the gym every day, but until you do it for real in a real fight, you've always got that little question mark in there, haven't you?
It happened to me against a Mexican called Raul Herrales, and I've sparred 12 rounds in the gym many times, but on a fight night, I knew this was going to be a long fight, and it was a bore. I was pacing myself the whole way through the fight, got to round 10, and I remember standing up from a stool thinking, I'm okay here. The last 3 rounds, I've put a bit of effort in, and I knew in my head I can actually fight for 12 rounds at a reasonable pace, but until you do that, there's doubts there, and I think that might be an issue with Antony-Yarde.
A point I would like to make is, obviously he was brilliant with his jab, Lyndon Arthur, didn't throw many straight right hands, so this could be an even more difficult fight now for Antony-Yarde if it's a fully fit Lyndon Arthur, because we've got examples here of some good straight right hands, Carl.
Yeah, there's a good example coming up here in a few seconds. He's working his way with that jab as he normally does, throwing it from kind of hip height, but here's a short right hand. And I'm going to slow this down a second. Look how nice that was. Lovely shot. Not a lot of effort, really, just kind of timed him onto it.
Relaxed speed.
Relaxed speed.
Yeah.
We'll wind it back and we'll slow that down. It's a perfect shot.
Yeah. Boom.
Lovely. Perfect. Textbook stuff.
So the straight right hand is a major weapon as well, Callum.
He's got a good straight right hand, as we saw there. So it's going to be even tougher for Yarde maybe in the rematch. But at the same time, the more he throws his right hand, the more he leaves himself open he can do, which can allow Yarde to create his own opening. So it's an interesting one. Whether I sometimes feel like the first fight, actually helped him not being able to throw his right hand because he stayed safe, he stayed on the jab, kept the distance, and it was like he did everything that Yarde never wanted him to do.
He boxed with caution,
yeah,
didn't
exactly, which made him safe, and Yarde couldn't get his own work off. So, but you saw there on that finish, he can finish as well.
A lovely finish, sir. But a question I need to ask you is, will he have the same cautious approach, do you think, in this fight, even though he's got the good right hand?
Good question.
I don't think he will have, but I think he should have.
Yeah.
I think he should have, but maybe he's gonna come out with a point to prove and a bit of an ego, and I've got my right hand this time, and now I'm going to show you how I can really fight, if you like. And because it was a close fight, far from controversial. It wasn't controversial at all, but some people thought Yarde won, Yarde thought he won, and he's definitely got a point to prove. So he will come out this time with firing more. So
the finish was good here as well, Richie, and I think people just have Yarde as the puncher in the fight, but I think Lyndon Arthur is a dangerous enough puncher himself, and you can just see here at the end it's coming up in the next few seconds, but when he puts them together well, and he finishes the job.
Yeah, finishes
here it
well.
is. Look at that.
I mean, that's lovely work, isn't it? Especially that left uppercut and then the right hand as well. So yeah, decent power that's got to be respected. And obviously Callum's made a good point there that he might have a point to prove that and try and land his right hand a little bit more. But I think if he boxes with a little bit of caution still with that jab, I think who knows, it could be a repeat performance. So we've looked at Lyndon Arthur in detail. Let's have a look at now Antony-Yarde. And one of his strengths, Carl, is his power.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely a very powerful fighter. We'll look at this fight against Kovalev here, some examples of it. There's a good shot. He's going to the body here as well.
He's really going for it here, isn't he? I mean, he was just literally one clean shot away from being world champion. This was such an impressive round of boxing for him.
I remember watching this fight live when it happened, and it was literally one punch, like you say, away from it.
So this is a really impressive round of boxing. Just keeps coming forward. Body shots as well, though, Cal. Not just head shots, but body shots as well.
You see Antony-Yarde, he's very good to the body. He stopped a lot of opponents to the body, and he softened Kovalev a bit to the body there. So, maybe in the rematch against Arthur, he's got to go to the body more as well and try and soften him up early on so he can get the work off later on. Yeah.
We're talking about the engine as well here from Antony-Yarde, but if you just look at this here, when Kovalev's all over the place, he throws a left hook and almost through exhaustion ends up out the ring himself nearly.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I remember that fight when he got knocked out in the 11th. It was from a jab, a left cross, and I do think it was through exhaustion, nothing else.
And really, we say lack of experience, but you can't blame him. He's in Russia, he's against a world champion, and he's got him going. You're going to go for it, Carl.
Of course you are, of course. I think he's done the right thing. And again, we could be talking about a completely different scenario here. If he'd had one more shot, he could have chinned Kovalev, a different referee, might have jumped in and stopped it. And he's a different fighter, and we're not talking about him fighting Antony-Yarde, we're talking about him fighting guys like Bivol and Beterbiev and all these real top guys in the world. So he was so close that night, but obviously it just didn't work out for him.
But to land those power shots, he's got to get close up to Lyndon Arthur, and that's your problem, isn't it? With Lyndon, he's got a great jab, but if Antony-Yarde can close the gap down, we know he can be devastating.
That's what he's got to do, and that's what he never managed to do in the first fight, not until like the last round. Lyndon is so good with the jab, the distance, and Yarde's got to find a way to get past that jab, close the distance down, and get his shots off and his power shots off.
Quicker feet, Carl, do you think?
Yeah, quicker feet. More. Don't try and out-jab him.
Yeah.
He's got to get around that jab, he's got to feint, he's got to slip, he's got to walk through it if he has to.
Yeah.
But don't try and out-jab him because he's not going to be able to out-jab him. He couldn't do it in the first fight and he won't be able to do it in his second fight. So he's got to get close, whichever way he's going to do it, and get his own power shots off. That
can cause problems for Antony-Yarde in terms of going forward. He might walk onto a big shot from Lyndon Arthur because with you, if you're pressing and coming forward, you can be open yourself.
Yeah, it needs to be clever. His approach when he's going forward, he can't just march forward with his hands stuck to his face and expect not to be hit. And especially if this guy's right hand is banging as well. Yeah. He could potentially walk into one. But a big concern for me for Antony-Yarde in this fight is we talk about he needs to apply more pressure, but can he sustain that pressure throughout a number of rounds? We've seen in round 8 with Kovalev, after he'd done that, he couldn't recover at all. He didn't start until the 12th round in the first fight. I'm just worried that if he has, say, a big round 4, is he going to be recovered coming out for round 5, 6, 7?
What I like about Yarde's power is the variation. Not only is the headshots, but the body shots, Carl, and that's significant.
Yeah, and it's going to be really important in this fight against Arthur. We see an example here coming up against Kovalev, who is a fantastic fighter, but this body shot in the 8th round was kind of the shot that's just coming up now. There.
Oh,
that's the one that kind of started the onslaught.
Yeah.
And then he applied the pressure. He eventually kind of blew out after that, but that was the one that hurt Kovalev, and he's holding on here.
So it's a big shot. And Callum, maybe you should be targeting Lyndon Arthur's body. If you can hurt Kovalev, you should be able to hurt Lyndon Arthur.
Definitely, and I think that's what he's got to do as well, to slow him down, slow his feet down so he can't keep that gap. As we saw in the last fight, he kept that gap perfectly. So if he works the body, ties him out, takes the wind out of him, it's going to slow his feet down and he can get the headshots off, and that's what he's got to do. And
his real strength as well is the headshots, Carl, the power shots.
Yeah, he's clearly a powerful guy, and I think, without taking anything away from Lyndon Arthur, in terms of who is the most powerful fighter, it's clearly Arthur-Yarde. But here's an example of him knocking some people out with, this is a left hook here in this clip, but there's nothing really going on in this fight, and it's a short left hook, not a lot of effort, that's it. But he's hurt this guy. Watch when he stands up, he does a little dance with his feet. There's nothing in that, but it shows you he's clearly very, very heavy-handed.
Well, I've been given some questions that we've got to answer, so let's go through a couple of them. Does Arthur have the power to knock Yarde out?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, here's examples of him landing with good power and hurting people. I think that Arthur-Yarde certainly has a good chin.
Yeah.
But Lyndon Arthur is a big guy who can punch, and he's pretty accurate as well. Very good technique. If he hits him clean, he could knock him out. Okay,
this one's I think an interesting one. Does Yarde have the boxing ability to outbox Lyndon Arthur?
No, I don't think so. I think that his approach needs to be. He tried to outbox him in the first fight, and it didn't work. And again, like we've mentioned, he only had one hand, and it didn't work. How's he going to do it if he's got two hands now? I think that he needs to get closer. He needs at some point to apply pressure and try and sustain it and stay on him. I don't think it's the right idea to try and outbox Lyndon Arthur.
No, he's not going to be able to outbox him. As you say, the first fight he tried it didn't work. He's got to apply the pressure, let 3, 4 and 5 punches go, and bully him. Has he got the fitness to sustain it as long as he's going to need to? We don't know, but that's what he needs to do.
I think most people don't see Arthur-Yarde winning on points. If he wins,
it's got to be by knockout, I think, yeah.
Okay, guys, here's a question. How different is the fight going to be with Arthur having his right hand?
I think it's going to be different because he's going to be more active with it. But that might play into Yarde's hands, and Lyndon might leave himself more open. Yeah. We're throwing that right hand, so it'll give Yarde more opportunities to get his own work off. But I think he's got to throw it more, but have the same cautious approach and use the jab and work everything off the jab. Keep the distance, keep the jab flowing, and let the right hand go at the right times.
So he's got to keep with the jab, but with the right hand as well, Carl, surely it makes him a better, stronger opponent in this one.
I think so. I think he's the favourite in the fight. I think that if he has, like Callum mentioned, the same cautious approach, plenty of jabs, trying to keep that distance, loads and loads of feints.
Control the pace?
Control the pace as well. And the right hand will help him to control the pace, because if Arthur-Yarde's coming forward and walking in the right hands, he'll maybe not want to come forward as much as he would like to. So I think it's going to be a much different fight than the last one. I think it's going to be way more exciting. He's going to have to start earlier, and this guy has 2 hands to use this time, so I think it's going to be a cracking fight.
Okay, an interesting addition to the Yarde team, James Cook. Good fighter, been a former super middleweight British and European champion. He's been added to Yarde's team. What will he bring to Antony's game, you think?
I think having someone new in your camp to freshen things up, liven things up, and he obviously felt like he needed someone new. He's kept with Tunde as well, so he obviously likes the work that he does with Tunde, but bringing someone in will freshen things up, and I'm sure it'll do him well.
And he speaks no nonsense.
No, I think
James Cook's, he's a good guy.
I think getting James Cook in is a stroke, not a stroke of genius, but they needed to bring someone else in. You look throughout social media, and people are calling for Tunde to get the boot because of his advice, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes and how Tunde really approaches the training and the training methods that they use. But I know for a fact that James Cook isn't a yes man, and if there's something that needs to be said to Arthur-Yarde, James Cook will tell him it, and he'll tell him it straight.
So that leads me on to my next point. Pat Barrett as a coach and Tunde Ajayi, totally different coaching styles.
Yeah, totally different personalities as well. And, you know, it'd be interesting to see how this fight falls out, because hopefully after this one we might see the two coaches get in and have a few rounds together after the press conference. But
mine wouldn't be on Pat Barrett myself.
Yeah, mine would, to be honest with you. But, yeah, like you say, every coach has their own style, every coach has their own way of working. And, yeah, they're two very different personalities, in full stop.
Definitely a bit of needle there between the coaches, and I suppose between the fighters as well. But I suppose that Tunde has taken some criticism because of, I suppose, when you talk about advice, maybe lack of advice and, you know, lands in the camp and all that. When you need to be critiqued and to be told what you're doing wrong, what you need to do in a fight.
Constructive criticism.
I think that's something Pat Barrett will give. But James Cook is someone who's going to see things and he's going to be able to give, you know, good, solid advice in the corner.
And final question, fellas, and it's mainly to you, Carl. This is a rematch. It's a big rematch, you know, for British boxing. You've been involved in a world title rematch against Leo Santa Cruz. You won the first contest. Is it an advantage winning that first contest going into the second one, or can complacency creep in?
I suppose a little bit of complacency can creep in. I kind of, the idea from myself and my team was do exactly what you did in the first fight and you'll win the second fight. We didn't expect Leo Santa Cruz to change his approach, and that kind of cost me the fight. I think that they'll know, Lyndon Arthur will know that Arthur-Yarde's approach has to be different this time, so we'll be expecting something different. I suppose that both guys have a fair amount of pressure on him in this fight, but he can't afford to be complacent, and this guy needs to kind of someone needs to shove a rocket up his backside, I think.
Okay then, guys, it's neck on the line time. Callum, who's going to win?
I think I'm going to go Yarde. The first fight, I predicted Arthur was going to win, but for some reason, I think Yarde might do it this time.
I think it's a hard one to call. I think that I would edge towards Arthur in this fight. I think obviously he won the first fight with one hand. Now he's got the right hand working. He knows he's made mistakes and he needs to come forward. But I still fancy Lyndon Arthur to do the job. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes either way, but put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Lyndon Arthur.
And I actually think it's going to be a cracking fight. I think it's going to be very, very close, but I think it's going to be, again, a well-disciplined display from Arthur, and he just nicks it on points again. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Callum, for your insight and your company today. Well, join us on Saturday, December the 4th for the rematch between Lyndon Arthur and Antony-Yarde, live on BT Sport. Don't miss it.